I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996, I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We're both in Skull and Bone, the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
Sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What the fuck is up? Welcome to Already Dead, me and Austin's weekly live stream call-in conspiracy variety show. Today we're joined by Brad Binkley. What the fuck is up, guys? You guys ready to get into the old Black Illuminati and whatever the fuck else comes up?
Let's party, man. It's one of my favorite subjects for sure. I have to say, I liked your intro.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I think I counted 7 or so gladiator clips, which I thought it was the right amount without having to put the most well-known gladiator clip, because watching all the other stuff, everybody's already screaming in their heads, "Are you not entertained?"
You're right.
So I thought it was beautiful.
Oh, that would be a good intro for the show. Yeah, that'd be like a
cool.
good tagline at the beginning. I need to start doing that. Are you not entertained? That's
would
smart.
be sick.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, it's at the Thin Line 123. That's actually how I normally open the show with a new guest. Is I usually say, "Hey, how'd you like the intro?" Because I feel like most of our guests usually have some sort of impression of it, and you went right to it. So that's dope. I did want to point out we have a bunch of people in the chat pointing out that Austin has a sexy voice. Which you know what? Now that you mention it, I see it.
Thank you.
If you could see my boner.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, let's I guess just go ahead and get into Black Illuminati shit.
Well, first,
go ahead, Boss.
let me say that I just think it's surreal to have Brad on, because I found him like a few years back, and I think it really was right before COVID popped off, or it was on tinfoil that I found you guys. But I was just like immediately, I kind of resonated with your mentality, like the things that you focused on, but also like when I went to find your show and I was listening when you and Monica were doing the show a lot more often, I heard when you guys had Garland Favorito on, that election integrity expert or whatever he was, that was just really informative, and like you guys covered that like consistently after kind of the hype was gone, and it still, I think, needed coverage. Like,
I still bring Garland on probably about once a month or so, and he still keeps us updated. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I was wondering, like, because I've been so deep into like certain narratives that it's hard for me to listen to all the podcasts anymore that I was like consuming on a regular basis. So like I kind of like try and dip my toes back in as soon as I have some free time. But like, what is kind of, like what ended up happening in the Georgia, as far as I remember, that they were basically kind of like,
Railroading everything based on process or procedure. So whenever you hear them say there's been 61 cases and Trump has lost them all, that's not really true. Most of those cases have been thrown out because a comma was put in the wrong. So when you go to law school, they teach you that if you have the wrong font, if you have the wrong alignment on your page, or the letters are spaced a little bit wrong, you get an F, because all of those are reasons that a judge can throw an entire case out, a complaint. Right. And that is what these cases were getting thrown out based on that and standing issues, because the judges did not want to touch it. So almost none of the cases were actually reviewed on the merits, yet they use that number in the media to make it seem like it is. And it's crazy to me that there is even a indictment going on in Fulton County or the federal level right now, because there are still cases going through the Georgia legal system that Garland Favorito and Voter GA have continued to pursue. And because of their persistence, they've been able to get and win appeals and have certain, whether it's an audit here or a standing issue there looked at. So these cases still haven't been closed. And Garland, actually, they got a big win where they got some legislation that passed so far, hasn't been signed, and the governor here, I don't know that he'll sign it, but to change the voting machines, I believe, in Georgia here, because that has been the source of all the problems. And Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is totally corrupt. But Garland Favorito is just, he is a soft-spoken, older gentleman with a great sense of humor who went from being a guy who's been doing this for 20 years, who had maybe 200 followers on Twitter, to blowing up, have 20,000 followers, not even a Republican or Democrat. He was advocating that he thought a Democrat had won the election when I first met him back in 2017 on WSB. And so he's a fantastic guest, and I encourage Sam Tripoli to get him on, especially right now with Georgia being the center of attention. And I think that they're going to become more and more relevant again here in the coming months.
Yeah. I want to give a little more context for the audience, because I'm not aware of this specific one. So what is this specifically referring to?
So
is this
in Georgia?
Trump
it's called
election,
it's the 2020 election, and it's this group. I should give some context. Called Voter GA. That this guy Garland has been a little You can always tell the legit sites when they're just shitty websites that aren't super funded and slick, and they're just bootstrapping it. And so what they've been doing for the past 20 years is trying to protect voter integrity in the state of Georgia by just being watchdogs over the elections. And when I first met them on WSB, we interviewed Garland because he thought John Ossoff, who's a progressive, whose dad rides around the South China Sea on a boat with a Chinese flag on it, just a total son of a communist, who won. And Garland, strictly focused on voter integrity, believed that he actually won the election in Georgia, but it was given to the Republican Karen Handel. So I always start with that so people know that he's not a Trumper, because ever since he started advocating that Trump got screwed over in Georgia during the 2020 election, I'll pull up these quotes from the New York Times, and it'll be like, we interviewed MAGA Trumper Garland Favorito, racist redneck, who said this. And I'll go, Garland, did you say this? And he'll be like, I never even talked to the New York Times. It's crazy they make shit up about him, but they have continued to pursue. One example, and Garland is so much better at rattling all this stuff off, but in Coffee County, Georgia, there were, I think it was 88 votes that were found to have been given to Biden that should have been given to Trump. And this is something that everybody agrees on, even the people who try and say that there was no election fraud or election problems anyway. And what Garland's group, what they were pursuing in court at first, was if they found that there were problems in Coffee County, then they were supposed to be able to do an audit of the entire county and then of the surrounding counties to see if the problem could be replicated across the state and end up being a consequential number of votes being flipped. Well, as soon as it was proven that 88 votes did get flipped from Trump to Biden, everybody who is saying that there was no problem said, yeah, Raffensperger just fired the people who made the mistake and everything's good. And the courts that immediately accepted that and were going to allow them to review those other counties they threw it out on process and procedural. They railroaded them at every single cost because nobody wanted to touch it. And so Garland actually keeps getting wins by showing the mistakes in the election. And I tell people, I don't advocate that I don't know that it was flipped for Biden in Georgia. What I know is that they have found votes that have gone from Trump to Biden in Georgia, and that every time there tries to be an examination of if that problem happened in other states, it gets railroaded by the judicial system, and then that railroading is then turned into a propaganda talking point of, well, they've lost all of the cases there, and somehow an indictment based on a phone call. So that whole thing's based on a phone call that Trump had with Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State, where he said, find me 11,000 votes or whatever. If you listen to that whole fucking phone call, you can clearly tell that he's not saying, you go make up a bunch of votes that don't exist. He's saying, just go, all you got to do is just find the ones we know they're there, because he's talking to people like Garland, and then you don't have to allocate any more resources to it. And the whole thing is that he tried to pressure this guy, Raffensperger, which is total bullshit, which you can't even get Raffensperger to say. And then Raffensperger, on the Georgia Secretary of State page right now, the main article is Brad Raffensperger, who I'm pretty sure is a CIA plant because he's got no fucking history, other than his parents' obituaries, which scream CIA when you read them.
Great.
But he said it's... Raffensperger thanks former President Trump in phone call. So he had another phone call that Trump got on, it says. Made it sound like he forced his way on there. But he's still having phone calls with President Trump about current issues and Speaker Mike Johnson. And yet the whole case about the January 6th thing is that he intimidated this guy and tried to, you fucking piece of shit, I'm going to fucking cut your neck if you don't find those votes. He doesn't seem too intimidated to me. If he's still having phone calls, it's all bullshit.
Right. Political theater all day long, right?
Yep, and the black Illuminati's at the center of all of it.
The Boule Society. Hey, by the way, I saw some tweet last night, and I know I never looked into it very deeply, but I know that LeBron James, you see that tat on his chest?
No.
It looks like the Boule Society crest. Yeah, which is like the winged lion, actually, or whatever it is. Yeah, but it's the exact same pose, man. Like it's spot on. And anyway, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, he's connected with, I mean, as far as I know, it seems like Diddy and Jay-Z are Boule, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if LeBron was, but anyway, thought it was at least interesting.
Speaking of Diddy, I think it was, I don't remember exactly how you got the connection last week. It was Austin, you told me. But this week I found out, I was listening to Nick Bryan, and apparently, I guess the DA that covered Ghislaine Maxwell is the same DA that's going to be covering the Diddy case. Which, I mean, to be fair, I think it's probably I assume it's because it's in the same region. But either way, we can see the parallels between the two. They're both some sort of, sexual trafficking operation going of some sort. And, there are a lot of parallels there. And Ghislaine got, well, not Ghislaine specifically, but there was people got hooked up. I mean, the fact that it was only Ghislaine that got fucked over there, and even really then, I don't even know what her sentence was, how bad she really got fucked. But so I think the fix might be already in. So that's Damian Williams, the DA there. So maybe we should look into see if he is also. He's a black guy. He's Jamaican of Jamaican descent. Yeah. So we probably should look into that. But either way, I think the fix is in there. I think we also have Nick Bryant coming on in a couple weeks. I do want to let the audience know real quick. The Rumble is down. I don't know if I fucked up something there, so sorry. So it'll be up on soon. I'll put it up manually. But, just saying the live is out. But, I guess, we the Boule Society shit, I think this came up from your Fannie Willis coverage.
Yeah.
Which you like to make fun of her being kind of fat. I think she's a little bit on, the edge of thick and fat.
They started putting more flattering pictures of her up.
Yeah.
They had the potato Fannie, and then they started doing I feel like when she was going in the courtroom with Judge McAfee there, I feel like they had a cinematographer and a professional lighting crew, because at one point I was like, oh my gosh, did I just have the thought cross my mind that she looks kind of hot there? And then I was like, tried to scrub that out of my brain. But I think so. I think Fannie, so you talked about that prosecutor. The question that I've started to ask now whenever I see some of these prosecutors that are associated with this, and just because someone is a black prosecutor doesn't mean that they are involved in what's going on here. But with so much going on with the way that they are controlling who are winning these races, these DA races, and with the district attorneys having so much prosecutorial power. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of power they have to choose who to prosecute and who not to prosecute. I mean, the thing going on in Georgia, from a legal standpoint, anybody who has gone to law, if you've gone to law school for a day, or not even if you've read any indictments in your life ever, you recognize that this is the emptiest, most ridiculous thing that you've ever seen in your life. There's nothing there. That's why they charge RICO, because RICO, you can turn what's called an overt act into a series of overt acts that are strung together to make a conspiracy. And
it's exactly what they did to the DC Madams, both of them.
Yeah, and that's what Fani Willis specializes in doing. And she's been screwing people over, doing this. It's like her expertise. And so I always ask, did they go to an HBCU school? If so, were they in a fraternity and sorority? And what sorority were they in, or fraternity? And so Fani Willis went to Howard University, which is one of the original HBCU schools. Kamala Harris also went there. And Stacey Abrams went to Spelman, another HBCU school. She's the DEI kingpin in the Marvel universe, is what I like to call her. I wouldn't mind shaving her head and having her play kingpin. I think it might be interesting. But she's in that, and she's involved with Fani Willis. Nathan Wade went to an HBCU
quick, that
school.
Picture fat. The picture was thick.
Oh my God.
Maybe this one right here. This is a recent one, because she was supposed to do a debate the other day, and she skipped the debate to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Must have been all-you-can-eat Baconators and free Grey Goose, I'm guessing. I don't know where she put her cash that she always has on her in this picture, but I don't know what this dress is right here. Maybe you guys can help me with this. Hold on, where's this here? Sorry, I thought I had it pulled up.
You're good.
Here it is. Sorry. Yeah, no, it was the most distracting thing I'd ever seen. There it is. Wait, what is that? So it's down there in the bottom. He goes, "What is this outfit she's wearing here?" It's like the hostess at a Mexican restaurant was cast as DEI Barbie, or like a mermaid from hell. Nathan Wade,
a mermaid from hell.
Nathan Wade's probably like, damn it, it's like when you go out, your ex-girlfriend goes out looking all sexy, like whatever the hell this is right here.
He's the one banging all the fat girls to get up, right?
Yes, he was banging another fat woman named. So Nathan Wade had a hot wife, and this is what you got to do to be successful in this day and age. You got to just plow through a bunch of these old fat black women. Here's Sonia Allen right there. Sonia Allen's like 60 years old.
Wow.
Oof.
And I when I have my whiteboard, I do a demonstration where I end up drawing a penis to show the connections. But Sonia Allen was in Cobb County. So this is a little bit of the backstory to this black Illuminati, because all of these people went to HBCU schools, and they were all part of one of what's called the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities. Now, the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities are known as the Black Illuminati, and they were created by the Boule to be built in the model of Skull and Bones at Yale, and have the same values and push forward the same amount of control in society. They were a way to control blacks through these fraternities and sororities. And I started watching all these videos of these people who were in one of these HBCU Divine Nine fraternities, Black Illuminati, who denounced it and got out of it because they came to God. And they have these long testimonies about how they felt they could not be part of what was going on and be with Christ because it was demonic to them. They realized that it was one or the other. And when you watch all the rituals, and I know that all fraternities and sororities do this, not just the black fraternities and sororities, but this with a connection to the Boule and with the way, at least in Fulton County, Georgia, Fani Willis, when she got elected in 2021, or 2020, I think she took over in 2021, she filled the district attorney's office in Fulton County with almost nothing but Divine Nine fraternity and sorority employees. I mean, the entire office now is people underneath her who she controls who are part of the Black Illuminati. I mean, it's unbelievable. I think about 60% of the 100 or so employees that I've looked up that she hired, most of, were all one of these Black Illuminati fraternity members. And so I'm like, what are they doing? What is their ultimate goal there? I don't know what it is. I know that her father was a Black Panther who had a bank account with Angela Davis. He is in congressional reports on riots and hearings from like 1968, 69, where he was arrested and they identified him as being, I mean, he was like side by side with Angela Davis, the well-known communist who was the first woman on the FBI's top 10 most wanted for like aiding and abetting. What was it? A triple homicide or bank robbery. I can't remember if they died or not. But she's being paraded around right now during these riots or protests going on right now, depending on how they're characterized. But her dad, this is why when she was talking about how I keep $15,000 cash, because she couldn't trace any of the money. Since Nathan Wade, the whole allegation was that she paid this guy who didn't have any experience, and he didn't. He had never prosecuted a federal crime before, and she paid him way too much money because he was porking her. After he porked this chick that I showed you on screen a moment ago, and that, buying her all the Baconator she wants and trips that she wants, and that she was funneling that, or he was funneling that money back to her, and that is benefiting from, illegal means of benefiting. I can't remember the exact terminology, but she was definitely doing it, and she couldn't trace it because she only uses cash. And she's like, that's what Black people do, is they keep 15 grand of cash because of white people, because they do identity politics. This is what they do. And the reason her dad kept 15 grand of cash and taught her to do that is because her dad was running from the police and the feds all the time. That's why he always had cash on him. And when you read what they caught her dad with when he was arrested, some of the stuff I don't blame him for having. He should arm himself, and he had an arsenal. But here's some of the things that they had on her father in 1968. He was a communist. So they got arrested because they jumped a motel. So they skipped out on a bill and they destroyed a hotel they were staying at in Louisiana, which was a Black-owned motel, which I'm like, why don't you stay at a white-owned motel if you're going to do that? Right? Don't screw over your own people. But he had a 9mm automatic rifle, a 27-page booklet titled 1967, The High Tide of Black Resistance, where the opening paragraph was, it was great. Wait a minute. Where's the opening paragraph? Sorry. The 1967 year marked a historic milestone in the struggle and the year that the revolutionaries throughout the world began to understand more fully the impact of the Black movement. Our liberation will only come when there is final destruction of this mad octopus, the capitalistic system of the United States, with all of its life-sucking tentacles of exploitation and racism that choke the people of Africa, Asia, and Latin. That was on his persons. 2 Department of State passports of his were on there. He had a couple other cartridges of 9mm 38 caliber. He had a newsletter from a publisher in exile named Robert Williams. He had a 25-page pamphlet entitled The Black Power Manifesto. And he had a copy of resolutions passed at the first conference of the National Black Anti-War, Anti-Draft Union. And he had a Chinese, I don't have that one on my notes, but it was like a model of like a Chinese society or something like that. All very interesting things. Then it had all the documentation of his life with Angela Davis prior to him getting married and having Fanny. So her father he also was a campaign manager for, was it Reggie Jackson when he was a Democrat vice or presidential candidate. And I mean, he's done a lot of shit for the progressive Black Panther communist movement. And by all accounts, from what I can find, his daughter is the same way, but I don't believe that they necessarily believe in the communist ideals. I think that they use the communist ideals and now identity politics to gain power based on people who are stupid and buy into the bullshit that they sell them so that they can rise politically and dominate and do kind of like what Fanny's done and fill the DA's office with people who won't stand up to her or question her, who are all part of this. They're order followers. That's what they learned to do in these fraternities. And it's like wild too, because I mean, I knew that she was not going to get disqualified from day one. I told people that, and I told them exactly why she wouldn't. The judge worked for her. The judge donated to her. The judge worked for Kemp, who was on Fanny's side on this. That's a whole nother story. But they all wanted to get Trump, and he had to win an election. He's a white guy who was appointed to his seat. He didn't win it, so he's in a black county. He's appointed to his seat because somebody steps down. He happens to be somebody who worked for the prosecutor, gets put on the case. I mean, that's a weird coincidence there. There was no way he was getting off, and he's a Republican in name, and he just gives the illusion of fairness is what he does. It's not actually freaking fair, but she went to Kamala Harris's HBCU Divine Nine party that she had at her house before she indicted Trump.
Wow.
And they showed pictures of this. It's all these black people doing these ritualistic dances. I don't know what the hell Dougie Emhoff is doing, the Jewish entertainment lawyer in the background.
What?
White guy. Her husband.
Oh, my God.
Kamala's husband.
Is this Kemp? I mean, maybe this is a reach. Is he of any relation to the Lawrence King's homie Kemp, the presidential candidate? I mean, Austin.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, that might be something for Austin. I mean, that's just a reach, just based on last name.
So,
it's just fresh in my head.
What's interesting about Brian Kemp and all this saga is that up until, I think it was December of 2021, Brian Kemp was all about doing an audit on the election in Georgia. He was pro, let's look into it. And then something happened. His daughter's boyfriend got into a very strange car accident.
Uh-oh.
He was working on the Kelly Loeffler campaign, and I didn't really indulge in that conspiracy at first, but the more that I saw his demeanor change, because it changed immediately after that, he became an anti-Trumper. He became somebody who supported voter integrity and Garland Favorito to somebody who would not allow Garland and his group to come to a GOP fish fry that they had paid tickets for because he did not want to have to answer questions that they asked him. And it's so conspiratorial. But
it is, but after Vault 7 dropped, I mean, I don't know. It's not that conspiratorial, especially like looking into Michael Hastings. Like, they can hack into your car anytime they fucking want. You know,
it's scary too.
It's terrifying, but I mean, it's possible. So I just like to just rule it out, you know, at face value, like because conspiratorial or whatever the case. I mean, I understand why most people would do that, but once you read through the CIA Vault 7 documents and see what they're capable of and what the NSA has done, and I mean, it's just like it's not even a debate what's possible, right?
Absolutely.
So,
it's like once you reach that part of you do enough research and you see enough that changes you, other people who haven't got there yet, they just kind of think you're crazy until they have that moment for themselves of just the contrast of reality versus this, you know, illusion of reality that they have created for us to live in. I don't think Kemp would have suddenly changed his position on the election had he just been worried about a car accident.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But so all of these people are in these fraternities and sororities, these black Illuminati. And the reason that this really stood out to me is because I had been covering this story since probably like 2017, 2018 it's a weird story about when Kamala Harris was the, you know,
dude,
what I'm
this
talking
is my
about.
favorite, brother. Like when I heard you talk about this, before you talked about it on Tinfoil most recently.
Yeah.
And so I had known about it from you for a while. But after I heard you on TFH, I went and looked it up myself. And brother,
dude,
like, that Brandon Keel and David Henry, dude, they were also at alongside LA Sergeant James Townsend, urging residents in the city to march in peace for Trayvon Martin.
Dude, it's wild. And closing the connection on what I said about Sonia Allen. Sonia Allen, and didn't get to that. Sonia Allen and Nathan Wade both worked in Cobb County, Georgia. And Sonia Allen, she worked for the deputy sheriff there as a lawyer in his office. And she hired Nathan Wade under the guise of investigating deaths in the Cobb County jail. It turns out, because they were later sued, that the reason that she hired him to investigate the deaths was because if an open investigation was going on, then the families could not receive the recordings that showed how their family members died because there was an active investigation going. So it was a way to circumvent the open records request, and it was a way to cover up what actually happened. And this came out, and Nathan Wade admitted to all of it, to being corrupt there, and Sonia Allen as well. And so what happened when that sheriff lost his position in Cobb County? Well, both of those people, Sonia Allen and Nathan Wade, who were banging each other at the time, their corruption was rewarded by both of them being hired by Fani Willis. Fani Willis also hired Sonia Allen to be her head of anti-corruption in Fulton County. Isn't that crazy?
That is insane, man.
Yeah, it's wild. So
no coincidence there, man.
And then one more thing here that I love showing this because it's so funny to me. Like, this is when you try to find any information that since she's been in the news a lot, it's not as easy to come up. But this image I shared with you guys just now used to be the first image that came up when you tried to search for who Fani Willis's ex-husband is. Notice something strange about that photo, right? That's Shaquille O'Neal and Fani Willis. And this article titled, "Who is Fani Willis's husband?" at relationship with ex-husband Fred Willis, and it has on the actual picture Fani Willis's ex-husband. It's a photo of Fani and Shaquille O'Neal.
Wow.
It's just her history.
No, they're outspoken Freemasons too. Like, I know Shaq is. Yeah.
Hey, look at that shit. It's wild, dude.
That's fucking
Shaq
crazy.
is a member of one of the Divine Nine fraternities at LSU.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yep.
I just looked it up. The Kemps are not related. I forget what the other was. Because we're talking about Brian Kemp. I forget what the other Kemp his name was. They're not related. But the time seemed to line up, so I figured maybe they were. But no, not related. Right. That would have been a bombshell if they were. But,
yeah, it would.
Yeah. So. Austin, what was the Diddy connection to the Boule Society? I remember you mentioned that, I believe, last week.
It was the John Odie or John Odie. I don't know how. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, but he was the guy who shot up that Trump hotel in 2018 in Florida, and so he ends up. Well, it turns out that I went and watched his interrogation video. And he's sitting there in custody talking to these cops. And it's absolutely crazy because he immediately starts explaining how, well, first he kind of like has to remember, that he has to explain himself first. So he starts explaining that Diddy is a member of the Boule Society. And he claims this is a chapter of the Illuminati. And he was mentioned in the Cassie lawsuit, this John Odie, as being, and he was claiming in this interrogation that that basically Diddy had hired him because he was a stripper, a male stripper, and so Diddy had hired him to fuck Cassie, like do all this crazy fucked up shit with Cassie because he like that was his thing. He was gay as fuck, I guess, and so he liked watching guys fuck his girl. So he was cucking himself all the time too. And then beyond that, he had them do like he was like directing it. He would have them do specific things, and he would call them like freak offs, and they would last for days on end, right? And like we're talking like, she was brutalized during all of this stuff.
These are the parties that they talked about.
Yeah. And so this guy was even named in the Cassie lawsuit, John Odie, and he also claims that he settled out of court with Diddy. There was a settlement arranged so he wouldn't, pursue charges of any kind or something of that nature, and also was basically gagged. But once he was arrested for this charge, he was so open. It was insane. Like all the things that he was saying. And so, he completely tied Diddy to the Boule Society and was mentioning even satanic ritual abuse and techniques of MK Ultra, right? And it's just like what the fuck, man?
You gotta want power really bad to
100%.
do some of that stuff.
100%.
I mean, it's crazy. And you know that they target anybody who starts to get a substantial amount of influence just in general in politics. So I would ask Garland once he started to kind of get a lot of attention on him, I'd be like, dude, are you vetting people who are going to be coming around you? Because they're going to send people to come and try and sabotage stuff. And at first, I don't know that they were all that prepared. And then you got people like Lynn Wood, the lawyer, who became a big blabbermouth and actually ended up being the reason some of the cases got thrown out.
Right.
And afterwards, it's kind of like you have to, if that level of attention comes at you, and unless you really just want to sell your soul to the devil, you got to be, prepared to vet people.
100%. Especially when, like, I feel like people aren't aware of the level of, first of all, how much the intelligence agencies have infiltrated domestic life, like in general, like they don't only have, like, I mean, we're talking as far back as 1959, you can trace Operation Chaos. And that was without a doubt, they were already creating domestic fronts, different organizations, different companies, just so they could run domestic ops and have no oversight. And it's just absurd that, like, I didn't realize until I did this Patty Hearst episode how entrenched they really were in the institutions, even at this time, and like, so for me, it was very eye-opening, because I didn't realize to what extent they had infiltrated the institutions. And when I find out, like, I mean, we're talking an on-the-ground covert operative who's running, aspects of Phoenix in Vietnam is called back to help run Operation Chaos in the U.S. as soon as it was greenlit. And then he immediately becomes a professor teaching a class at Berkeley.
Of course.
Yeah. And he sets up a pipeline for privileged white students to go to Vacaville Medical Prison in order to meet with oppressed blacks in the prison and different cultural associations like the BCA, the Black Cultural Association. And
to study them or to, like, mess with them?
Oh, I mean, well, of course, they were running MK Ultra experiments at Vacaville and had a fake prison wing where as far back as 1955, Charles Manson was an inmate at.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that made me think of when people talk about racism. Everything's racist nowadays. Right. You want to see real racism? Go read the Tuskegee paper documents.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I mean, that's some racist shit right there. And it was funny because I would get my videos flagged on YouTube, and I'd get these trolls, which you can copy and paste the things that they say, and you'll find 100 other accounts saying the same thing, telling me that I'm a racist and I'm a white nationalist because I am creating vaccine hesitancy by telling black people that the same institute, Johns Hopkins, which is still being sued for billions of dollars because of the Guatemala syphilis experiments, which they went over and started doing them over there so they didn't have to worry about any constitutional rights, and they could literally inject syphilis into the eyes of babies is what they did over there. That's where they injected it. Over here, they just found people who had it, and they spent 40 years making those people think that they were getting free health care when what they were doing was, according to the words of one of the Johns Hopkins doctors, is they wanted to see the ravaged corpse of these African Americans' bodies when they died after 40 years of syphilis. And they got this woman to be their friendly nurse who was a black woman. So they influenced black people using other black people, the Stacey Abrams of the world. And this woman would bring them warm meals, drive them to all of their appointments, and she would run interference and make sure no doctor they ever went to outside of the Johns Hopkins doctors let them know that they had syphilis that wasn't being treated. It's fucking wild.
That is so crazy, man. I'm not surprised at all. And honestly, it's just like when you mentioned how they utilize black people to exploit other black people. I mean, it's par for the course. And when you look for
it's a boule,
and when I again this most recent episode, like, you realize, like, I got such a crazy feeling when I found out, one, that the SLA, right? They're supposed to be this you know, they're supposed to be in the same vein as the Black Cultural Association, as the Black Panthers, right? They're supposed to be this radical Marxist revolutionary group. Of course, they themselves, the SLA, was much more violent in the aspects of they had declared war on the United States government verbally and publicly, and were publishing communiques and all this crazy shit. But you find out that it was like a reverse Jonestown scenario, just on a much smaller level. The way that this kind of resonated with me, because Donald DeFreeze, all right, he's running this group. They hate whites, but all the members of the group are white privileged kids from universities. It's the most insane dynamic racially you could ever imagine. And then, it's like, what did they do? Well, their first order of business was to execute Marcus Foster, the superintendent of the Oakland Public Schools, who was actually working, not fully involved with the Black Panthers, but was speaking with them and was actually like trying to work with them in certain aspects of things. And all of a sudden he gets gunned down by cyanide tipped hollow points.
That's
and
wild.
I was like, what the fuck? Cyanide, you got to say cyanide, And then apparently after the bank robbery had happened, right, where Patty Hearst is seen with Donald DeFreeze at this bank robbery, and it was it turns out, she had kind of, allegedly after she joined the group, she was with a couple, like a married couple, the Harrises, who had committed like 2 additional crimes, right? And it's interesting, just as far as like to me, Patty Hearst was without a doubt mind controlled in certain aspects of things. Yeah. She was also politically radical before all of this happened to her. But when she was meeting with Donald DeFreeze at the Vacaville Penitentiary, 1, they were having sex. That's like a fact. All right. And then 2, it turns out that Donald DeFreeze was taking like certain mind control drugs, right? Like Ephorol, or I can't remember the name of the drug specifically, but he was popping it like candy. And it turns out that after he escapes from prison, when you can actually trace exactly which guards were allowing him to escape, because there was a program to allow him to escape and then send other escaped convicts to the SLA to then join up. And even one of the escaped convicts goes and meets with DeFreeze in the SLA like 20 times. And then he's like, these motherfuckers are crazy, dude. He's like, they're literally saying they're going to assassinate the vice president. They're talking about bombing federal buildings. Like this, it reminded me a lot of my research into PatCon, honestly.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Epstein. It started making me think of Epstein.
Well, that as well.
In the prison.
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say it sounds like fucking Strassmeyer.
Exactly, dude. No, it's just absolutely insane. The level of depth that story goes to, and what it exposes, because it really does expose.
It's so beyond the realm of normal society that it's hard to even believe that it's real and not fiction. That made me think of Epstein. So Epstein was moved to the floor of that prison he was in, where the cameras went off and he killed himself, where the only person to ever escape that prison escaped from the floor that he was on. I don't know if he's alive on an island somewhere, but I found that to be interesting. And he also said something that made me think of Reagan's assassin. What's that guy's name again who tried to kill Reagan?
Fuck, dude.
Well, he's a YouTube musician now.
Yeah. Damn it. Was it Mark David Chapman? I think that he's the one. No, he's the one who killed Lennon, right?
I can't remember the guy's name. John something maybe.
I know exactly who you're talking
Adam,
about.
who was it tried to assassinate Reagan?
Hinckley?
Hinckley.
Yes, Hinckley.
Yeah.
So if you look up Hinckley, Hinckley's got 50,000 followers on YouTube, and he plays acoustic music, and he books and sells tickets to concerts around the country that ultimately the concerts get canceled because people call and bitch at the venue for having John Hinckley doing a concert there.
And I think his thing too is like, I remember I've seen him on Twitter before. He'll like offer to go on shows and stuff, but he won't talk about that. You're like, well, what the fuck else would we want to talk about?
We got Jodie Foster coming on if you.
Oh my God, man.
So another thing that made me think of, and this gets back into the Black Illuminati and the Knights Templar thing with Kamala Harris, is Fannie Willis's parents, Stacey Abrams' parents, and Jesse Smollett's parents all ran around the same Black Panther circles when they were growing up as kids. Isn't that crazy?
Jesse Smollett.
Yeah,
That's
and you know his sister's an activist, just like Stacey. Stacey actually got into a high school here in Georgia, that she got into it for acting, and then she switched to politics afterwards. And I mean, because kind of the same thing, you know. Then fast forward years later, she plays the president of Earth on the new gay Star Trek. It's wild, but this Illuminati shit, or Kamala Harris, Knights Templar. So I'll put this story up on screen so you guys can see it. I was so shocked when she became vice president that nobody talked about this. This is a woman who, if this very frail person who's president is gone, is going to be, is that shared with you guys? Yeah. Mama Kamala, you know, and her kids that are Doug Emroth's kids when they had their arranged marriage, and the kids were 15 and 19 when the two of them got married. And they talk about her maternal instinct. She's not a fucking mom. She's Montel Williams' side chick, is what she is. But this is when she was the Attorney General of California. An article, case against 3 who ran fake police force collapses. And I don't want to ruin the punchline there in that headline, but so basically these 3 guys, who one of them was Brandon Keel, and Brandon Keel worked for Kamala Harris. And the only thing Kamala Harris has ever said about this story, she hasn't, her office has said, Brandon Keel was a low-level staffer, which was not true, because Kamala Harris's thing was truancy, making sure kids are going to school or something. And she wrote reports, and then so she could later arrest them if they smoked pot. But she put special teams of people who worked directly underneath her to do these truancy reports, and she specially thanked this guy, Brandon Keel, in a report multiple times, and he reported directly to her. So they had a close relationship. And him and this guy named David Henry and this other woman named Tanya Allen, they started dressing up as police officers and going around to police precincts in California. They would set up meetings using his Kamala Harris Attorney General badge that he worked in her office. That's how they got the foot in the door. And when they got to these meetings, they would tell these sheriffs of these precincts, we are the Fraternal Masonic Order or something like that. We are descendants of the first ever police order, the Knights Templar, and we are here to exercise our jurisdiction over your police precinct and all of the police precincts in California and 33 other states, as well as all of Mexico.
Jesus.
Just the audacity to do that and think you're going to get away. You either believe it or you are, you think you're going to get away with it somehow, and you think that because of the power of Kamala Harris as the Attorney General. When these guys were ultimately arrested for impersonating a peace officer and for illegal use of a federal badge, Brandon Keel was asked, what did Kamala Harris think of you guys going around telling people that you were the Knights Templar exercising your jurisdiction? And he said she knew about it and she approved of it. Nobody has ever asked Kamala Harris that question, ever. Right? So fast forward to the trial for these guys, which they were facing up to like a year or 2 in prison if they were fully convicted. Now, Brandon Keel, he's the one that worked for Kamala. For some reason, after like his first trial date or his arraignment or something, his case gets thrown out on a technicality because they say the police officer gathering evidence walked by his car and looked in at his laptop and that he didn't have a warrant to do that. So Kamala obviously helped this guy out.
Way to get off. Yeah, exactly.
And that guy's Twitter account, which was active and supportive of Kamala up until 2015 when this happened, went totally cold from there.
Wow.
Gone. And I could find nothing about this guy at all, no trace of him, until a couple of months ago when a listener said that they actually found something about him. I don't want to dox the guy, but I'm thinking about trying to get in contact with him to see if he has a comment on the story. In fact, I probably will. But that guy kind of disappeared, and it sounds kind of like, okay, we're going to let you off, but you're going to get the hell out of here, and you're going to stop doing what you're doing. And this guy, David Henry, let me show you a video of David Henry before I tell you what happened to him. David Henry was the Grand Master. That's what he called himself. And he made all these videos because of what was going on when they were arrested. That's him right there. And let me play this. So this is a good summation of how he felt things were going in this arrest of these three.
Our lives have been threatened by the LA Sheriff's Department. Detective Amelia Hernandez put a hit out on me, Grandmaster David Henry, Reverend Tonette Hayes, and Brandon Keel.
And that's Kamala's guy, Brandon Keel.
Please understand what you have done. I alerted everyone, from the President of the United States to the U.S. Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, and to California Attorney General Kamala Harris. I alerted everyone because they need to know the corruption of the Los Angeles Sheriff Department. Not all the deputies are bad, but just this particular group, Amelia Hernandez and her group, her clique. What I am saying is they threaten to kill us by pulling us over or detaining us and taking us to one of their locations and killing us. So this is what the Sheriff Department is doing. How do we know this? Because we have members, Masonic members who are LA Sheriff deputies, and they've been there for a long time.
These guys went to HBCU schools. This guy you're listening to right now is actually an Emmy award-winning Fox News local journalist. And he's wearing all these weird garb, like these white gloves. I mean, he's wearing some sort of what he feels is some sort of Illuminati clothing that represents the Grand Master. And when I hear him say we have all these people, it makes me think of Fani Willis and all these people that she's placing everywhere. And this stuff, which I thought was just crazy at first, I'm kind of like, maybe he's not so crazy. And he continues.
Who have told us this. But what I'm saying is, this isn't good. So I notified everyone. I'm telling my members, my jurisdictions. I'm telling my Masonic orders. I'm telling the Illuminati. I'm telling the Knights Templars, not in the U.S., over in Mexico. I'm telling our gangbangers out there, please understand your obligation and what my obligation was to you when you needed me. So now I need you, every one of you, to keep an eye out and keep your ears open, because they are trying to kill us. This will not be good. So just killing us, having 3 black folks just stretched out, or maybe Detective Amelia Hernandez wants to kill us one by one. Now, come on now. All of this because I started a black police department? Or was the plan with the LA Sheriff Department and the LA Times, along with Leroy Guillory?
So his videos always end in the middle of weird shit like that. I don't know why. But so this guy he went to his arraignment. And then after his arraignment, here's how he dressed to his arraignment. And the guy obviously believes what he's saying. He dressed like this right here. And this person who's with, I mean, look at him. He has this weird golden,
Wow.
like Illuminati dish towel or something. And I believe this is the other woman who was charged, Tanya Allen, I think. Tanya, yeah, I think Tanya. I don't know if it's Allen, but
Fucking priest.
she told people that she was a priest, is what she said. Now, other than that, which she apparently wasn't, the police said that she was just kind of along for the ride. She was his fiance, I believe. And so after this arraignment, before his first court appearance after that, this guy drops dead. Guy's just saying that they put a hit out on his life a couple of months after he made that video, drops dead. And you can see in that article that I had posted, the headline says, the case against a fake police force collapses as the phony chief dies. He died of a pulmonary embolism, they said. And so Brandon Keel, Kamala's guy, is let off the hook. This guy dies. And the only one who actually served any time in prison was the woman, the black woman, who the investigator said was just along for the ride. She served like a year in prison. So equality for black women in this case under Kamala's. This is the vice president of the United States, and nobody has ever asked her about this case or the fact that, yeah, there it is, a side chick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that crazy?
That's absurd, man.
And they're all connected. Look at this shit here with these photos of this guy. So he used to have a Google Plus page, which is gone, but some of the pictures are still online. Here he is, pictured with Bill Clinton. And he's got his Illuminati garb in that other picture there.
Hell, dude?
Property of Grand Master Henry. And that's another guy there that was a politician. I can't remember what his name is. But he's pictured giving awards to various politicians. Now, I know you can rope your way into meetings with politicians. I understand that.
Right.
But the one guy worked for Kamala Harris on a special unit, and the only word she's ever... This shows you that the media is complete bullshit. There's another picture of him and his boys.
Wow.
I'm wondering if Fannie and all of them are dressing up like at Kamala's house in weird outfits like this. Here's some of their jewelry, their bling that they wear. And this came from this guy's old Twitter account.
What the hell?
And I'm trying to find this photo that used to be available online of, okay, this is some weird shit right here. So I put a lot more, I give a lot more credit to this than I did before after learning about Fannie Willis and the Black Illuminati. This is on that David Henry, what I have deduced was one of his Twitter accounts. Let me share that. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry.
All right, let's take a second, and we need to swap over to the call-in portion of the show. Obviously, we can continue the conversation while we wait for calls to come in.
Yeah, you can always stop me, by the way. I can go on.
Oh, you're good. I just want to take a second to let you guys know this episode is brought to you by Nadeau Shave Co. Big Shave has been psyoping the American people for decades with their multi-blade razor scam. You want to get that face baby smooth on the cheap. These are your guys. Get rid of that razor burn, that irritation, ingrown hairs caused by those multi-blade cartridges you use, which are nonsensical and cost way too fucking much. Return to the traditional shave. You don't need that expensive bullshit. Nadeau Shave Co. supplies you with single stainless steel blades, just like your granddad used to use. This is good stuff. I'm telling you, like, look at that thing. Look
It's a
at
good
it.
looking razor.
Right? It is. I use that shit probably maybe like once a month or so. You guys see I have a little bit of beard. I don't shave regularly. But when I do, that shit is smooth. Your standard issue includes one traditional safety razor and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. I mean, you can get a lot of shaves out of those things. And as you can see on the thing, there's two sides to it. So once one side starts to dull, just swap over to the other side. And those who want to shave on the daily, you can go to their quarter shave club. It ends up being about 25 cents a shave. That's NadeauShaveCo.com. Keep an eye out. He's about to have some shave body and hair soaps coming out here soon. NadeauShaveCo.com. Use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. All right, guys, we're about to open the phone lines. So call in. Also, we're gonna start interacting with the chat a little bit more. So if you got any questions, I started using a dough, and my parents got back together. Coincidentally,
I have to say that razor, I would only shave in public places with that razor because it looks like it would get you laid.
Yeah, I dig it. I definitely dig it for sure, and it really does. It's smooth as fuck. It really is. I mean, let's be real. The sponsor sends it, and I'm like, okay, let's see how it is. I'm like, oh shit, all right, I will sponsor this. Yeah. Is Austin? Are you a Jew?
No, man. I actually am not a Jew. How dare you, sir?
I did want to put it. Someone in the chat earlier said you look like a non-cuck Destiny, and I was like, oh shit, you kind of do.
Oh fuck! God damn it!
Non-cuck though, non-cuck.
Yeah, no, like a Chad Destiny. So that's not bad. Hey.
I guess not bad.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he's a pretty popular guy. He's doing something right. So yeah, but guys, the phone line's open. So if you guys want to call in, feel free. But yeah, we'll just continue on where we are. Sorry, I didn't mean to fuck you up.
No, you're good. I know I can rant, but this is really the last little image from the website or the Twitter page, which is weird. You guys can put up on screen there. This is from David Henry's webpage, and it appears to be some sort of ritual torture or I don't know, hazing to get into it's sideways, and it says a senator a senator and former California state legislator Mike Davis taking Illuminati blood rituals, and it has two guys with their shirts off with white ropes around their necks and bodies and black blindfolds on in what looks like an auditorium or something with dimmed lights, sitting in these chairs, and one of them it says senator on it and the other says legislator, and this is like what they have to do to get into the club or something. This is the compromising thing. I mean, we talk about they compromise these people. Who's to say this isn't one of the ways they do it?
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta say it looks racist as fuck if it wasn't.
Yeah, if it wasn't a black guy posting it, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean that's exactly what. Did you know that out of all the people who were a part of the psychiatric evaluation in the trial of Patty Hearst was another thing we can point to is it was Dr. Louis Jolyon West. Right. And he did it without asking for any fee whatsoever. But what I found insane is that sick. For the first time in my life, I got to actually use an article written by the mind bender himself, Dr. Louis Jolyon West. Right. And I found it insane because I couldn't believe that basically what his findings were kept from the public at the time and kept from being heard in court at the time under seal by the judge. And so after the trial took place, everybody's trying, there's a pretty serious, agenda to get Patty released. Right. And I mean, Congressman Leo Ryan was a part of it right before he died in Jonestown. And Dr. West, along with Margaret Singer, one of the psychiatrists as well.
Yeah.
And, yeah, well, it turns out this is the one time, for some reason, they seem to want to expose that these methods are somehow possible, at least to the extent to get her released by claiming that she was mind controlled. And I found it so insane because
it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Jolly himself to be able to write an article and claim that first of all, I mean, you have to realize, when Patty was arrested, she had dropped 87 pounds, right? And she was showing all these insane signs of because I guess, of course, she was kept in a closet blindfolded for 57 days where Donald DeFreeze allegedly raped her.
Oh, yeah.
And so did Willie Wolf. They both raped her, I guess. And in one of the audio tapes, she comes out and says that, and she sounds like an entirely different person because the first few tapes, you hear her. She's like, Mom, Dad. She's like this very sweet sounding person. But it's very interesting because you can clearly hear the transition.
It's
And
like how they
also,
fracture her brain and her reality.
yeah, it was like a dissociative state
Yeah.
that she entered. And it's, I mean, clearly because they gave her a new identity, Tanya the Revolutionary. I mean, she, you know, it's very interesting because like you see what they did to her, and they kept her blindfolded that entire time.
Yeah. No,
Right.
that's what they do with these activists. There's this book called The Organizational Weapon, the Bolshevik Strategy, which is what we see play out all the time with these protest stuff. And they talk about looking for the perfect type of Bolshevik man, which is really just a stupid young activist. Because who doesn't have a leader in their life, who's a little bit fractured, who needs direction, who they can bring in and say, you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself. You should be mad about this. Your position in life is like this because of these other people over here. And I'm going to give you a new identity. You are now, you know, activist lion, go roar or whatever. And then they go do all this shit and protest for stuff that they know nothing about.
That's for sure. I mean, the fact that they were clearly, in my opinion, like first of all, with all of what's happening on college campuses right now, I mean, to me, it just resembles a chaos operation of some kind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just crazy to me that, and beyond that, I mean, we all should you know, accept the fact that the slow march through the institutions has taken place. I mean,
it's
we are Marxist. Everyone is Marxist.
How could you send your kid to a college at this point that is one of these schools? Not to backtrack, but on the back of that picture, I didn't even notice this before, but they were pointing out that was Brandon Keel, a Kamala's person in that ritualistic photo. So that's an issue. I'm going to share that around on X and see if it gets community noted. I doubt it will.
Wow.
But that's
apparently on his Google Plus account, there were more pictures than just him with Bill Clinton. There were like pictures with
Maxine Waters.
Yeah, but with like Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Yep.
Yeah, and like even like Rihanna and Nicki Minaj or something were even on there. And I mean, apparently he had sent these like letters to it wasn't just that LA, you know, police department. I can't remember if it's Santa Clarita or something.
Yeah.
But he had sent letters to like multiple police departments in the area. Yeah. That's just so crazy to me. I mean, the fact that he's like claiming like that they have sovereign jurisdiction in 33 U.S. states, 33. I'm like, what the fuck is
they
going on?
had parties too. They had all of these other members of the Freemasons, they called it, come over to the guy's house because they talked to a bunch of the neighbors, and they had all these, what they said were fake police cars, and all these people dressed up as police officers coming over to their house. And after these three were caught, there was still an open investigation trying to round up more of these people that were involved.
Jesus. That's so crazy, man. I mean, they had like, I guess they had like legit, you know, wardrobes, like actually looked like policemen, and had like police vehicles that were marked with like the Masonic symbol of some kind. And they even claimed that they were in like black jumpsuits with Masonic fraternal police patches and like stars on their collars even. And
all right, guys,
you have to believe it.
We have a call in now.
All right.
Go ahead. You're on Already Dead with Jose, Austin, and our guest, Brad Binkley. Keep in mind, it's basically just me and you that can talk. They can't talk to you, but they can hear you. So go ahead.
Sweet. Awesome. Hey, Jose, I just want to say, first off, I love your guys' show. I love listening to it in the morning whenever I work out. It's one of my favorite podcasts. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to ask if you guys know about Richard Grove.
Or just generally, if we know about him. I appreciate the sentiment, though. By the way, I'd love to hear that. Just generally, you want to know if we just know about Richard Grove, just generally speaking?
Well, so he has his podcast called Grand Theft World with Tony Myers. You guys know about that?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. I think I've watched it a little bit here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't know if you guys were aware of it or not, but it's like half of the conspiracy type stuff that I like to listen about is covered by you guys, and then like the other half is covered by them. And I always thought that it'd be awesome if you guys did like a crossover where you guys like reach out to them or whatever, and either they have you on their podcast or you have them on your podcast or something like that. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'd definitely love to have Richard Grove on or go on or whatever works out there. He was actually, for those who follow my other comedy show, Tower Gang, I know way back when, I think we did what's that thing they do in New Hampshire, Pork Fest. I think they did a live Tower Gang with Richard Grove forever ago. We did that Tower Gang, kind of like a comedic conspiracy podcast. We had him on for that. So yeah, for sure. Appreciate it, man. Do you have anything else you want to? I guess we'll kind of talk a little bit about Richard Grove and thoughts about that. But I don't know if you have anything else more specific you want to ask before I let you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention also that the last episode that they did of GTW is the last episode that Tony Myers, his co-host, was on. And so now they're kind of searching for co-hosts and whatnot. And again, it's just kind of my my fantasy of watching one of you guys go on there, and I know you guys would have a lot of insight into all these different things like Oklahoma City and whatnot, because they didn't even cover that as much as I thought, as much as you guys did. So that's it. That's pretty much it.
All right, appreciate it, man. I'm gonna let you go. Yeah, you'd think they'd cover that more there, but all right. Call in some other time. Appreciate it. We'll let you go.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right.
Yeah,
bye.
bye.
All right.
It's a compliment. Richard Grove he's also a wealth of information.
He's very smart, yeah.
Yeah, the little bit I've seen him here and there, he is pretty dope.
I noticed in the chats somebody was asking if anybody else thinks I look like I'm tripping balls.
I saw that earlier.
I always look like I'm tripping balls because I have big bug eyes. I used to open up some of my stand-up shows back in the day with, hey, I just did a bunch of crack.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Well, speaking of bug eyes, I guess the question asked earlier, maybe that was directed at you and not at Austin. Are you a Jew? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think so.
My God.
Yeah, I don't even know why they thought Austin was a Jew. I don't really feel like you have Jew physiognomy. I don't know. Not that it's a bad thing, but I would guess that. So, okay. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thought on Richard Grove. I appreciate the call in. But yeah,
I really can't I can't honestly remember what I went. He was like a go-to guy for something I was researching at one point that I thought was valuable, but yeah, I haven't really been listening to him a whole lot. I'm not sure if I had heard him from Scott Horton or if that wasn't it. That wasn't.
We interviewed him once a couple of years ago.
Did you?
Yeah, and he was great. He's super knowledgeable. He was in at least one, maybe two of Alex Jones's old documentaries as a historian.
I think he's big on 9/11. I think is his,
yeah,
one of his
that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I did want to point out my buddy Mike Jackman said in reference to Kamala, she kept Sirhan locked up. Yeah, I recall that. Yeah, which is a complete tragedy.
Oh yeah. But I mean, apparently. Sirhan was on one of the death lists that was circulating through the SLA and the prison system from Soledad and San Quentin and Vacaville, and yeah, one of the death lists has it's pretty crazy, man. It had 244 names on it, and already 13 were asterisked, and apparently the targets were executed, and one of the targets on the list was Sirhan, who was in solitary at the time. And I just thought, well, of course, if the CIA had actually created a radical group like this, the SLA, well then, yeah, of course they would do that. And the same reason they would claim to, one, be politically inclined to, one, support the Black Panthers, you would think. But instead they go and execute the only Black superintendent who's working with the Black Panthers. It's come on. That doesn't even make sense ideologically, right? But it still happens.
It's also a level of brainwashing and finding the right personality of people that already disassociated to be able to to be an assassin.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I think that what they were doing, and what I know they were doing, at least as far as Dick Russell reported on this in 1976, and really blew the lid off a lot of it. And he was pretty much just exposing the fact that, they were it was the California Department of Corrections who were actually deeply involved in carrying out this operation on behalf of the CIA. And it wasn't just CIA operatives who were coming in and meeting with some of these inmates who were involved with this program, but it was also like Secret Service agents, which I couldn't believe, but I also can because of what I had just researched from the Confessions of a DC Madam and Craig Spence, because once again, Secret Service involved. They're the ones who raid the Henry Vincent, operation for the call boys. And so it's just
that one was wild. I don't know what it is. The Secret Service really doesn't seem to, at least from my recollection, doesn't usually get pulled into these parapolitics things. But in that one, the Craig Spence one, they're like directly there. You're
directly
like, dude,
involved.
what the fuck? Like, what is going on here?
It's insane. Off-duty Secret Service agents are literally employed at Craig Spence's house 24 hours a day with their armed security.
You're muted, by the way, Brad.
You're muted, Brad.
Here's a book you guys might like. It's called The Big Con, the story of the confidence man, and it was published in like the early 1900s. And this writer went around the country with a traveling band of con artists, and they would go from town to town, and he documented all of it, and he created a whole dictionary of the types of cons that they did. And you still see these used in all of these con movies, Ocean's 11 and Sneaky Pete and all that today. But he just documented all of the experiences, and they would take over these towns, and they would get all of the police involved, all of the politicians involved. They would get everybody in the town involved in the con, and their target would be one really wealthy person who one of them had already conned before. Because you get conned once, they con you, but they don't let you know you've been conned. You lose the money, but you think you just lost it. And then all of the other con artists go after them again. And so everybody in the town has this really rich target that they rope into the town, and they take over like a store that is not being used at the time, and they turn it into a fake horse racing gambling center. And they bring in all these people from the town. They hire them to be actors. They hire them to, act like the environment's exciting and pumping energy in there. And they put a fake board up there. They have police officers in on it, outside, making it all look legit, just to bring this one really rich guy in there to make him think he's really gambling and really has a chance at winning, when he has zero chance. He's always going to lose a bunch of money that he's rich enough to lose, and then he's going to walk away not realizing that every single person in that town was full of shit.
Right.
And I think about that now, and politics now in D.C. That one guy, the Republican guy, the gay guy that had all the fake names, what was that guy's name, who they outed? The guy said he was a college volleyball player and just a bunch of what the fuck was that guy's name?
Are you talking like
the congressman who they
Pizzagate affiliated dude?
The what?
The guy that was with Uma Abedin or whatever?
No, it was this guy who was just recently. He's this flamboyant guy who came in. Santos, yes, thank you, Maggie.
Oh, okay,
Santos?
yeah,
Santos.
I didn't even know he was outed. I thought that was just obvious from the start.
I think it's obvious too. Maybe you're right. So some people, I look at their face, I'm like, you don't know you're gay yet? Come on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah he's like my favorite, honestly.
He was hilarious because he was just open that he was a con artist, while everybody else was pretending not to be, in my opinion.
Wow.
All right.
It's interesting.
We know how they can transform a normie into a Marxist, but how do we transform normies into libertarians? I'll be honest, I've cared less and less about specifically like political labels as time goes on. As you guys have been able to tell with my show, this started out as really like a political theory show, and it's kind of strayed away from there, more about parapolitics. But I would say it's partially because I think parapolitics kind of provides you examples of look where the government's being fucking whack. So I think that's a good now if you have someone who's like ready for that, like hand them like Anatomy of the State or some shit. Like But now, like, if you have, like, I think the shit like we're talking about is a good way to kind of like nudge them this way, stuff like this. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that, but that would be my thoughts on it.
Yeah. So for me, what I just talking to people one-on-one is where I have the most impact, I feel like. Yeah. Because on social media and stuff, there's just people just repeating things from people they think are aligned with them. But a lot of people that I know in the theater community and acting and comedy are super independent. They build their own motorcycles. They run their own businesses. They're entrepreneurs. Everything about them is libertarian. It's just that they have this misguided concept of politics that was ingrained in them in college. And I just kind of like point things out like that and ask questions, the Socratic method. And I don't necessarily want to convince them to be libertarian. I agree with you that if I were given a political label, it would be libertarian. I don't identify as that. I can't believe I just said identify. It's just right. Because as soon as you call yourself some label, then people can start treating you based on their definition of that label. I don't want to be.
They can categorize you and kind of dismiss you easier, you know.
And they're no longer reacting to you as an individual. They're reacting to that idea of that label in their mind, and so you're no longer having a conversation. And so I just like to point out contradictions, not in a dickish way, but in a way that kind of like makes them go, I didn't think about it that way. And then when you kind of, I find it interesting personally to just ask friends of mine who I know have really only watched some of the left-wing media, hey, have you ever typed in Hunter Biden laptop? or Ashley Biden, just stuff like, and then I did this on my show a few times where I would tell
drip.
Yeah.
Oh God damn. Don't do it.
or Jeffrey Toobin, stuff like that. Right. We would just watch them search these things for the first time and just watch them go, bro, like just the shock that came across their face that they had never heard any of that. And I have found that friends of mine who are not like radicalized to the far left have just kind of through that process and their own research started to come around to everything's bullshit and become more libertarian in doing so.
Yeah, right. You brought up a good point because it is annoying when I mention libertarian, say on social media or whatever. People have these assumptions, and it's usually like they think I'm like some, I don't know, like basically kind of like a faggot, I guess. And they're like, I'm like probably more right wing than you are, like way more. Like you ever read Hoppa? Like that's what I'm talking about. Like, all right, I have this guy CSETP. Yo, haven't really paid attention to the college protest much, but keep hearing about the yellow tent such GS connection from right wing. Did GS become self-hating or pushing a reverse narrative gone bad? I know you talked about a protest, in the last episode. I don't know if you guys know what the fuck that even means. I don't know what the GS stuff. I mean, honestly, when it comes to protests, I'm kind of with you, Brad. For those who haven't watched your most recent episode that you did this morning. I just kind of find protest gay, to be honest. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Like I just
it's
even
never
if
about
it's
the
cause,
issue. It's like
it's just.
I don't think it's productive. Like honestly, man. Like and I'm not saying that clearly you should be allowed to protest, but at the same time, it's like all that's happening is it's a live echo chamber. You know what I mean? Like that's really what it is, like honestly. Or it's grounds for infiltration. That was my number one thing. I was just like, dude, you wouldn't catch me dead at January 6th because like it's a setup.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean?
I told people not to go to January 6th.
Yeah.
So you read enough of those FBI entrapment cases where it's the dumbest redneck in the group and they're like, hey, I can't believe they did that to you, old boy. I got a bomb in the car.
yeah.
Here, and then they arrest him as soon as the dumb fuck takes it. It's crazy. Can I explain briefly what I said in that show about the protest? So the way that I view these protests always, I believe in people's right to protest and free speech, obviously, but I do not. All of the protests that get attention, to me, aren't about the issue. They aren't about the protesters. They are about the community organizers. They're like the NFL Combine for community organizers, where the organizer who is able to create the most conflict get the most attention and make it easiest to take away our rights is going to be the ones that get drafted. So what you want as an organizer is you want to see, and I have clips of these activists at these trainings saying stuff like, we need to see people getting pulled out of wheelchairs by police on the front page of the Chicago Tribune and stuff like that. Jesus. If you're protesters who are usually idiot college kids, and that's the whole skill of being a protester, how many idiot college kids can you get to go put their bodies on the line, as Linda Sarsour says, for an issue they know nothing about, have asked no questions about, that could potentially ruin their future, and get them to do whatever you want? If you can get those people to do that, you can get them to vote Democrat.
Right.
You can get them to vote for whatever you want. They won't ask any questions. And that's the idea, because the ones that are actually respectful, like there was a Kennesaw State University protest here in Georgia that got no attention. Most of you probably haven't heard about. The papers here sure haven't covered it. And I found out on Reddit that they've been protesting for Palestine for months, every day. And there's no outside infiltrators coming in insisting that they break the law. The police are there, and the school police are there, and they have warned them not to do anything outside of what was acceptable for the school. And they have respected the free speech rights of the students. Police have stayed out of it, not intervened, and everybody has done what they're supposed to do. It's a shining example of how this country is supposed to work. And if the media cared at all about modeling the correct behavior, this would be getting all of the attention, not the ones that are, you can pay attention to the others, yes, but how many more protests like this are happening around the country that are the correct way, that nobody's being interviewed from these protests? They're not saying this is the right way. They're just ignoring all of it to focus on the conflict. And that is why that community organizer at KSU ain't getting fucking drafted, because the Stacey Abrams, the Barack Obamas, and the AOCs of the world, they came from causing chaos. And the story of Stacey Abrams was a freshman at Spelman University when the Rodney King riots broke out back in like 1992 or 3. And she took credit for this back then, and she takes credit for it now. And I showed all these new newspaper archives. I'm actually the one that revealed that she was burning the Georgia state flag on the steps of the Capitol on WSB. Wow. That they were covering up, that within 30 minutes of us revealing that on WSB through clips that her mom said during an obscure a video at a sermon she was giving, where she laughed about, my daughter burned that flag on the steps. I don't think they know about that. And within 30 minutes, the New York Times, Stacey Abrams' campaign, they had taken the story, flipped it into something that it wasn't, because Stacey Abrams actually sabotaged a bipartisan effort to get the Confederate flag removed, because her issue for organizing was the Confederate racist flag, and she needed that to continue existing because they gained political ground by causing chaos. And she, after the Rodney King riots, bragged about organizing a mob who were mad at white police officers that ended up going down the street to the nearest Korean grocery store and burning it down, looting it first, and burning down the apartment the family lived in above it.
The Koreans stopped the riots, right? They armed up and were on the top of the buildings,
They were chased to the top of the roof. There's a famous picture of this. It's surrounded by all these people that Abrams takes credit for organizing. And the guy's he's got his family, his daughters, throwing bricks down, trying to save it. The police had to drop in gas. They had to do a V formation to come in and push all the protesters away to save this Korean family. I even watched a video from this old man that he made back in 2016. He was interviewed. He's still traumatized by it. And all of those people that Stacey organized, many of them got into a physical confrontation with police. They got arrested. Probably their future career opportunities ruined because they were idiots. Stacey, on the other hand, was interviewed by Oprah. She got a job in the mayor's office. She got an internship on congressional campaigns. She got a Ford Foundation grant to be an author in a program that they were doing, and it launched her political career. The next year, she spoke at the 30th anniversary of the March on Washington, because of her organizing ability to just cause conflict for the sake of conflict.
I'm sure they had insurance though, so who cares? You know?
Right.
It's true. Yeah.
We have Bobby in here, and I think this is on our previous point. We were kind of talking about like how to make people libertarians. Said, or hey, can you show me where anyone actually debunked Pizzagate? They sort of did, but in the same way that for those who follow along with Tower Gang lore, recently my buddy Top got into it with Matt Walsh about that. I don't know if you guys saw that. Like
I did see that.
Yeah, you saw that.
Top's a good agitator on X.
Right.
There was that hellscape fucking video of that dude who had like a generic 9-to-5 corporate job and just kind of showed everything. And, you know, it's fucking awful. And then Matt Walsh, you know, debunked on a video, like essentially a straw man version of what Top was getting at. And that's kind of really, I think that's a perfect parallel of where they debunk Pizzagate, where he goes, oh, well, people got to fucking work for a living. It's like, no one's fucking saying you don't, you dumb fuck. What people are saying is that, like, for one, I think I'm of the opinion that, like, economically speaking, that's not viable. Like, the only reason the shit like that happens is because corporate fucking gigs get so much fucking kickbacks that they're able to do shit like that. But in a real fucking, in a non, you know, distorted economy, that sort of shit probably wouldn't exist. And that's just not a way people really should be living their life. I mean, if you got to do that to make ends meet, I get it. You know, that it is what it is. But really, you know, I think that's kind of the trap, the American dream trap people get sucked into, of that, you know, I show up at 9, I click on the computer, I go to lunch break, I shoot the shit with Sarah at the water cooler.
They make you think you have to. Like, they make you think you can't do anything else, and that's what the problem is.
No other alternative.
That's fine if you want to do it, but you should know there are other options.
Yes, exactly.
And it seems like people can't even imagine an alternative at this point. You know,
the education
and it's also
conditioned, man.
I just feel like the American dream, you know, colloquially speaking, has been crafted into go to your 9-to-5, go back to your rental in your leased car, own nothing, and you'll be happy. Yeah. Like, that's 100%. What it is.
Yeah.
Was he talking about the child trafficking Pizzagate?
Yes, he was talking about Pizzagate, which is like
absolutely not been debunked.
The way that it got debunked is they debunked the straw man version.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is fucking
That's exactly what they did.
That's why they called it Pizzagate.
I made a video. I had some videos taken off about that, and I made a fake interview that I did with Brian Stelter, where he used the straw man Pizzagate thing perfectly, which Brian Stelter was. So people think Brian Stelter got fired because he got a demotion. He didn't. Brian Stelter went to the Stanford like journalist incubator, where he became like a mentor to all of these up and coming journalists. So he actually became more damaging to the country by teaching his false ways. Yeah, he's not a bad journalist. He's a good propagandist, and that's what people need to realize about the media. But what he said in this interview was that Kayleigh McEnany was there before she became Trump's spokesperson and all, but she brought up how Jeffrey Epstein, they were talking about, I can't remember what they were talking about, but she's like, Jeffrey Epstein and all the Clintons, the plane rides and all that, and then Stelter's instant reflective reaction was, oh, really? Are we're gonna go down this fake news rabbit hole, or we're gonna this Pizzagate, this fake news rabbit hole? And that's what they do. They conflated anything that was real into this debunked straw man to get people not to think about it or question it.
I 100% agree, man. But I mean, if you read through the Podesta emails yourself, you see Tamara Lazzuto and all this shit, man. It's offensive that people don't believe that Pizzagate is real. And honestly,
Podesta's back, isn't he? Isn't he back in the administration?
Who?
Podesta. I think he has a position as a climate ambassador or something.
Oh yeah, man. He's a lizard person for life. He's never going away. You know, like they have to utilize these people until they overexpose themselves, or you know, they somehow
for sure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, he was still, you know, he was still friends with Dennis Hastert even after his prison sentence.
Yeah, dude.
It's fucking crazy, man.
That is wild.
You know? And when you go through the Podesta emails, there are at least a dozen references to Comet Ping Pong, right? And like, I mean, they were hosting musical groups like the Sex Stains, right? Who prominently featured the triangular boy lover symbol in one of their music videos.
But they debunked the basement.
Look that shit up.
They debunked is the basement existing.
Which didn't they even then later find out that was kind of bullshit? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, because it's not actually a basement, even though
it's a rape.
They could. Yeah, it's a separate.
It's a lower dwelling.
Yeah, but they had like this separate shed kind of. It was like this. It was almost like in
basement, it's a fuck
shed.
Yeah, it was fucked up. But
said fun times on the outside.
Right. But there is a theory that we know that based on the architecture, as far as what they had to publicize, and the plans of when they got it, because they made, whenever David Brock and James Olifantis, bought the property, it turns out that they issued, like, they had people come in and actually tunnel to other, like, they actually had to file this on record, that they had people come in and actually dig up areas of the property and then create like a tunnel system that would attach to certain other businesses on the block.
Tunnel?
We know that. Yeah. You want? I mean, honestly, it's
go check out my
crazy
Jew Tunnel
because,
episode.
Yeah, when you look at all the businesses that were actually allegedly involved with this sort of tunnel system that was, on record, it turns out that they also had, like, Besta Pizza. Yeah, guess what? They had the same exact symbol, the triangular boy lover symbol, and that was strategically taken down as soon as they got press for that symbol, right? And they reissued a new symbol. And yeah, it's really insane though, because I mean, beyond the sex stains and all these insane, like, you watch the music video of the sex stains, they have it featured prominently. It's in plain sight, like it's on purpose. They are clearly messaging and flaunting this message that, they are clearly involved with underage trafficking. And
yeah, what's crazy about that story to me, though, is that whole story was put in the news, in my opinion, to prevent the Epstein story from going mainstream before it was allowed to go mainstream. I was doing all this stuff about Epstein back then, and nobody would listen to it. Nobody would listen to it. People are my progressive friends of mine. I would send them court documents. I read through thousands of pages of court documents with Ghislaine Maxwell, and I knew about Ghislaine Maxwell avoiding the deposition. I talked to the lawyer of the victims, and he told me I tried to depose all of these powerful people, and Ghislaine Maxwell in particular said she was never coming back in the country again because her mom was sick, and so she couldn't come to her deposition. And then 2 months later, she's photographed at Hillary or Chelsea Clinton's wedding.
Wow.
It's wild. And he said the only one, and whatever you think about him, the lawyer told me, he said the only one who actually responded to him and helped was Donald Trump. And he picked up the phone and he said Trump helped the investigation. And then they made this a Pizzagate story until Trump got in office, and it was no longer a Clinton story. They could then reframe it and make it a Trump story because Jim Acosta, not the CNN guy, but the former prosecutor in Florida, Trump put in his administration. And so they made it seem like it was that guy's fault for giving Jeffrey Epstein the 13-month sweetheart deal when he actually could have been facing life in prison based on the initial charges he was getting. But what happened was, when you read the court documents, is that the witnesses started dropping like flies. And this guy had a case. One of them died, I believe. Others just backed out. And it was all this crazy shit going on, and the case was falling apart. And Acosta either had to get him on something or he was going to get him on nothing because of the intimidation that was going on. And that ended up being Trump gave Acosta this job in his administration because he helped out his pal Epstein and gave him a sweetheart deal.
Wow. Man, that's ridiculous. Like, it's just... Oh, and by the way, I fucked up. It was subway tunnels that had previously... So it turns out that, I guess...
It wasn't a basement, it was fuck tunnels. Okay?
I'm not denying Trump had a friendship with Epstein, by the way, for the comment there. I'm just telling you what the lawyer told me and what they did. Yeah,
right.
Trump's relationship with Epstein, it didn't look good. There's no doubt about it. But Epstein, being associated with Epstein, Epstein got close to people and he tried to compromise them. He probably compromised a lot of them. Maybe Trump Maybe not. I don't know. I know that I went into investigating that case, and I read thousands of court documents and talked to the lawyers, assuming that both Clinton and Trump were pedophiles. That was my assumption when I started investigating. I've never voted for Donald Trump. But after reading it, Trump came out looking a lot better than Clinton. I'm not saying Trump's innocent. I'm saying that he's not. Clinton's fucking guilty. There's no doubt about it when you read the court documents. Trump, there's a, you don't know.
Have you heard that story about Trump during all the most the wildest claims that were happening during the election process in 2016, and he was apparently at golfing with Bill Clinton, and there's a fucking picture of him grabbing Bill by the dick,
by the pussy,
right, grabbing him by the pussy, dude, 100%. And to me, what is that?
They all
what
fuck
is
each other, man.
That's what I'm saying. And I mean,
there are other angles to
Roy Cohn alone.
Yeah, there you go, Roy Cohn. I was going to say there are other angles to really be like fuck Trump aside from Epstein, because Epstein doesn't really as far as I know, there isn't really much there. So the Cohn thing, sure, well, that's kind of like his dog.
Didn't he admit going to Epstein's island? But the claim is that he didn't participate in anything. He was hanging out with the workers.
No, he went to his house and
that was
New
it.
York.
Okay,
yeah.
He's the man of the people.
It was the penthouse.
And that was in the deposition of the cooks that worked there. They said that Trump came there.
Okay, so it's true.
So that came, I mean, I don't know if it's true, but it's
I know.
It's
I'm
what
just
the cooks
I just think that's funny, right? Because he went to Epstein's house. It's I get it. And I've said
they were
this
all
before.
fucking kids in the other room. I was hanging out having soup.
Yeah. That's your excuse, brother. Come on now. But
real quick, I have Hopping of Asgard says, Jose, you're going to have Jim Jesus on. I honestly don't even know who that is, but I will tell you, for all those guys out there who want me to have certain people on, if you want me to have them on, go on Twitter, tag at whoever the fuck, go on who so-and-so show, and that way then I can go look at their profile, see if they have anything interesting to say, and I go, oh yeah, I'd love to have them on. That's the best way to do it. But one more thing, CSETP, hey Eddie, Thought Shift, how often y'all carry this shit home? Do you find all this shit wearing on you? I used to. I found the big picture was worthless, as I didn't even know who is responsible. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this shit is pretty fucked up and dark, but I do think having a proper grip on reality and what really matters in regards to you and your life is important. I think this big stuff is fun to talk, somewhat fun to talk about, and it does matter. For example, I've with the Terrence Hickey stuff I've covered, I've had Tanya on, and that stuff does, especially with having the widow on my show, it is kind of wears a little bit on you, but it is also to some extent you got to have proper scope, what's going on. It's I don't know, do what you can, but I don't know, also realize it kind of to some extent it is what it is, and I don't know, have a proper grip, but have a fucking wife, have a family, have a real life. I don't know,
do things you enjoy and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, because people ask me that question too a good bit, I'm not by any means black-pilled at all, because I think sometimes we can attribute they, and I don't mean the transgenders. Or maybe finally as conspiracy theorists, they are. It's the Jews and the transgenders.
It's the Jews and the transgenders.
But we make them this monolithic, undefeatable monster, when the fact is that that's not reality. These guys are power-hungry backstabbers. They're shaking each other in the hand while jabbing each other in the back as well. They can self-destruct with their egos and their ability to be out of touch. And while the internet is bad in many ways, it is good that we can continue to run our mouths. And the more we run our mouths, and not even necessarily on the internet, just talk to people in person, because people in person are far more reasonable than they are on the internet. And for me, remembering that this is a demoralization campaign that we're experiencing. And the purpose of a demoralization campaign is to demoralize you and blackpill you and remove all hope. So by having hope, just having hope in and of itself is an act of resistance.
100%, man.
And I think that's something to hang on to and just mock the ever-living fuck out of them.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Just have fun with it.
Yeah.
But I think with that, I think we're at a good spot. Make fun of your local, or not local, your global pedos, and enjoy life. Make kids, have a wife. Have a real life out there.
Yeah.
Focus on you.
I
but
think
also
the best goal though, like the best goal though, like at least for me, what I've prioritized and focused on more than ever is I want to slip that poison pill into their drink that makes them forget how much they trust government. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And honestly, just we just have to remove that veil. It's so important. It's just honestly, it's the only way that you can unplug from the partisan, the ridiculous. Yeah.
Be
I
cool
think
to
it
people.
does. I think it does kind of, that veil coming off makes you realize not to venerate these fuckers, and on the
100%.
inverse to also focus on the things that matter, like
Exactly.
family, like your life, like the things that immediately surround you, and not to get caught up in, oh, so and so is so fucking special and I should listen to what they say. Who gives a fuck about them? They're probably fucking kids. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
No
but
doubt.
with that, I think this is probably a good spot to end it. I think it's a good note to end on. Brad, let people know where they can find you at, please.
Propagandafight.com is my website. You can find me on X at Freedom Act Radio, YouTube, youtube.com/Brad Binkley, Rumble, rumble.com/The Prop Report, rockfin.com/Propaganda Report, and I believe that's all of the patreon.com/Brad or /Propaganda Report.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can find me at the Underclass podcast. It's pretty much just on all audio streaming platforms. Other than that, follow me at Underclass Pod on Twitter, and at the Underclass Podcast on Instagram.
Yeah, big shout out to my patron sponsors that help me do what I do. I have my co-host on Tower Gang at Tower Gang Toad, at Abrogate D's, Kevin B. Clark, a full-time guitarist and private music teacher in the New York area, at ZOVERACK, then at _Infinite Zeal, Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy podcast, at Biblical Anarchy, then Tim Tuttle does a lot of edits for this show, at Jolly on Klebold, and then also a new guy here. I've been drinking on this. If I've been a little tipsy today, this is why. Don't get this stuff. Don't
That
get
stuff
it. It's
is
Rabbit-
good, dude.
It is good. That's what I'm saying. Don't get it.
Really?
He sent me like a fucking case. I'm like halfway through it, and I've had it for like 5 fucking days.
What is it?
It's too good. It's Rabbitite wine,
yeah.
blueberry wine. It's
I
fucking
gotta get some
dope.
more of that, man. I got it at the Libertarian Convention. I don't even like wine, and I'm pounding it. I'm like, this is like 12% alcohol. This tastes. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, fuck, I am way too. I'm just like, good. Like, fucking, it'll make you a wino. Don't do it.
It's
It'll fuck
delicious.
up your life. Stay away from it. Don't
Yeah,
buy this
Stay away
shit.
from it. It's too good.
It's too good. But with that, guys, I appreciate everyone who showed up for the show. Appreciate you, Brad. I love
Thanks
you,
for
Austin.
having me.
Yeah, and
Love
with
you
that,
too, buddy.
we are out.